What is up, catfishing family? It's Kevin with Palmetto Cats coming at you with another live stream tonight. And boy, do we have a good one for you. Anyone who's ever wondered how to service your catfishing reel, you're going to learn tonight. And you're going to learn from one of the best in the biz. Pipeline Tackle, Corey and Chris over at Pipeline Tackle are here tonight. They're backstage and they're going to show you, walk you through a maintenance job on a vintage reel, which actually belongs to me. So it's really cool that they're servicing my reel, and I thank one of my friends for sending it to me. We didn't even know it was vintage until Corey told me backstage. But anyway, it's going to be a great show. He's going to talk you through it, tell you a little bit about the company and what they're doing right now, and then is also going to tell you, how to service, how the correlation goes with more newer reels, like maybe your catfish special. So it's going to be an information packed show. We got two camera angles ready for you. Anyway, thank you for being here tonight. Hit that thumbs up, share it out if you don't mind. A lot of people are going to want to see how you do this. And if you want to support the show, there are links in the description. If you want to support the Palmetto Cats live stream, the Real Deal Fishing Podcast, or just the channel, go visit my website, get you some Palmetto Cats merch. Go down there, become a member. You can donate through PayPal, donate through Super Chat. All is accepted. If not, I just thank you for being here. You're supporting me just by being here. All right, enough of that yammering. Let's get Corey up here. How you doing, Corey? Well, let me get you a bigger there. How's it going, man?
Hey Kevin, how are you, man?
All right. And those of you who are maybe saw that little lag there, they don't have the best service, but they will get to the question. You'll just have to deal with that little bit of lag there. But he's going to be doing most of the talking anyway. How's the weather over there in Alabama, right?
It's Alabama. Yeah, it's Alabama. So if you don't like the weather right now, just wait a minute because it's going to change.
Awesome. Well, this is Corey with Pipeline Tackle. He's got his friend, his partner there, Chris, behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
Chris
They're
is
helping
back.
him set up the cameras, and we also got this other camera angle here, which is the most interesting camera angle of the night, and we're gonna get going here in just a minute. But Corey, while you're starting on this vintage reel here, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you guys started the business and what it's evolved into, and what you're doing today?
All right. So kind of a long story short here. We started, fishing on Wheeler Lake, and we had there was nobody that done reels. We done a lot of reels ourselves because there was no place to find it. We had to kind of tweak the ambassadors. We were trying to get a little bit of distance back then. It was fishing on the banks, so we were trying to cast as far as we could, and that's kind of where the desire to come into the tuning and super tuning and stuff like that. But like I said, we started, messing with reels for ourselves and like close friends and whatnot. And then, as we got better into it, we decided, well, hey, we need to try to see if we can make this a kind of a job, and it kind of fired up like that. Once we hit social media and we was able to promote through social media, I mean, our inventory kind of tripled immediately. So we had tons of reels. Then, of course, we went and kind of made it a full-time job, and it's been going on that way for at
Mm.
least 2 or 3 years, just straight pipeline tackle.
That's awesome, man. And you told me earlier that you actually had to give up your full time job because it was so busy and you were pumping out so many reels.
Yeah. And of course, that was the plan from the beginning. Of course, to do
Right.
something different and stay in the fishing industry, and it worked out because, like I said, we've been doing it for a while, and actually, kind of leading up to the COVID thing, we were just getting slammed with work, and we had two, three
I
guys
bet.
in here working sometimes, and we were pumping out a ton of reels. And then, of course, the COVID thing kind of slowed down the parts, so it made our turnarounds kind of last a little longer than we wanted to, and whatnot. And certain brands got to be a real pain to try to get parts for. But
Mm.
our standard ambassador stuff, Hen, Shimano, we keep rocking with that.
Hmm. You got Mr. Ray Ferguson down there said that you work on all his reels.
Yeah, we know Ray pretty good. He's a real known tournament angler as well. Fishes a lot of the big tournaments and stuff like that. So
Hmm. Awesome. Well, I sent you this reel here, and it was a gift from a friend. It's an Abu Garcia. Well, I'll let you tell me what it is.
well, this is a vintage Abu Garcia. This is from the late '60s. A lot of people have seen these old Abus. You used to find them on eBay a lot. Now they're not as so easy to find because everybody has kind of grabbed them up, especially these ones with the clicker. They're real desirable. They still hold a great resale value. So everybody tends to want one of these red reels, especially in the 6,000 frame width with the little wider frames, you know.
Mm. And so when I sent it to you, I had no clue that it was vintage. I mean, it. I guess that it's in such a good shape. It's not really faded. It's not really beat up. And I really didn't even know. I think maybe there was one thing wrong with it. What did you see wrong with it right out the box?
I didn't see a whole lot wrong with it during my inspection. What I seen more or less that could have been, it felt like something was wrong with it was simply just because the old reel was dried out. A lot of the
Mm,
greases had done gummed up in it, so it felt sluggish and tight. The worm gear run back and forth, especially after I cleaned it and was able to mess with it and open it up a little bit. It all started working properly. So what I think was actually wrong with this reel was it just needed service, and that's kind of why we're here tonight, is to kind of convey the fact that we need to service and maintain your reels, to keep them from damaging them, and to make the of course the life, to extend the life of your reel. That's the main thing here.
hmm And so you get the box from somebody. So first of all, if you want to send Corey and Chris a reel to Pipeline Tackle, the link is in the description to their Facebook page. But don't just box it up and send it to their address. Like he said before, because parts are getting so hard to find, they're going to be more specific on what types of reels they send. And that, Corey, you said that's going to be specific to the ambassadors and Shimano's,
Yes, what
correct?
we're going to do, just to kind of reiterate, what we're going to do, as of right now, we're going to make sure that we take the orders that we know we can turn out in a fashionable time frame.
Mm,
So we're not wanting to take things and get it hung up in the shop because we had a bunch of orders that we have been working on very hard to get out of here that has stayed in the shop way too long. And so to keep from doing that again, we're going to stay on our ambassador stuff, mostly your round ambassadors, which is your typical ambassadors like so, all the way from the 4,000 model up to like the 7,000 models. We can
mm,
tune all those. We can mostly super tune all those. So we're going to try to stick with our ambassador stuff, which is very popular in the
mm,
catfish world, anyways. We'll lead over into pin. We could do any of the pin stuff. Honestly, we can, but we're trying to stick with stuff that the guys are using right now. If you're not aware, we tend to service like a lot of the guides, or the tournament guide stuff. And what you're going to find with those guys, you're going to see like the pin squalls, the pin fathoms,
mm,
the warfares through the fathoms kind of line. That's your newer pin stuff, and a
mm.
lot of people tend to use that stuff. And then the Shimano, like the HG, the Takotas, the Low Pro Takota, and the Round
Yeah.
Takota, the Calcuttas, any of those real popular models.
Hey, Corey, just a quick housekeeping thing. I'm getting a lot of clicking, maybe from the other AirPod. Um, maybe you have to put both of them in your ear. I'm not sure.
I got two.
Oh, maybe it's just your beard. I think that's what it is.
It could be.
Well, we'll deal with it. Do you do Daiwa sea lines?
The Daiwa has been a real hard one to get around here lately. We did do the Daiwa
Gotcha.
stuff, but Daiwa was really hard to get a hold of, and it got to the point where we couldn't even get a hold of Daiwa.
Mm,
So we're just going to kind of lay low on the Daiwa and the Akuma stuff. Akuma's been real good in the
gotcha.
past, but here lately, like I said, it's just been harder to get a hold of certain
Right.
things. It's taking too long, so we're going to kind of steer
Mm,
away. But we are ready to take new orders. We're just like we said, we're just going
awesome.
to be a little more model specific.
So what you do, guys, is you go click on their Facebook. If you don't have Facebook, they do have a website. I know some people don't do Facebook, but you send Corey and Chris a message and you say, "Hey, I have this reel. Is this something that you can work on?" And usually, if it sounds like if it's an Abu, a really, common catfish round reel, that he'll say yes. And then you box it up, you send it to him. When you open the box, tell you look at the reel, you diagnose any issues, and then you just start ripping it apart, or what do you do?
Okay, so basically, how our shop runs is we're going to get a certain amount of stuff in the mail. Once we get to it, we got to
Hmm.
go everything kind of like first come, first serve. So we kind of put everything that comes in on a shelf and we go one by one. When it's my time to get to that reel, we kind of do batches of reels. So we're going to do 15 or 20 reels in a batch. We're going to order parts for those reels, whatever we got to do, knock out those 15 or 20. And then that's just kind of typically what helps us. That's the way it
Hmm.
works for us. So we do batches. And it could be, no telling how many orders in that batch, but that doesn't matter to us. We just try to do a certain amount at one time. So we'll get the
Gotcha.
box, we'll open it up. I like to have a contact note in there with the name and your phone number and
Mm.
your address and everything. So a contact note is fantastic. And if something happens in the mail, which rarely happens, but if something does happen and your box gets opened up in the mail or broken or opened or whatever, they've got that contact info in there. So it could help as well. But it helps us too. So what I'll do
Cool.
is I'll take it, break the reels down, I'll inspect everything. Then I usually call my customer and tell them what I see. And that's when we go for the
Gotcha.
options for upgrades, whatever options I'll lay out on the line that's available for that reel. And then I'll let the customer pick
Mhm.
on how far we're going to go with that reel.
Gotcha. Quick question from Matthew Jones. Are you guys planning on being at the Kansas City CatCon?
I'm not sure if we're going to be at the Kansas City CatCon, but we are looking to be at the Kentucky CatCon. We was last year as well, and we're supposed to be doing another seminar, hopefully. So if everything goes right,
Awesome.
we're going to try to be at the big CatCon.
Beautiful. All right. So I see you've already got my reel taken apart, and you told us that
Right.
there's no major issues, just a tune up, right? All
That's
right.
what it
So
looks
I'm gonna
like from
turn it
what I
over
can
to
see.
you, Corey. You walk us through.
Okay, so we'll just get started here. So basically, when we get a reel, we do, I'll show you this first. We kind of break everything down on a tray. And as you can see, this reel is very dirty. Everything's still got old grease, grime on it. That's how we're going to get them in our shop. We're going to go through, we're going to put these through ultrasonic cleaners. We're going to get all the dirt and grime and the grease off of it. And then we're going to inspect every single part. And you can see these parts are very dirty. It's kind of hard to see when they're like this. So you need to clean the reel first in order to have a good quality inspection of all the parts.
Right.
So once we do that, and I've contacted the customer, and we're through all that, we have a parts list. Say a worm was bad, which is very typical, a worm or a paw, your worm gear and your little paw. This is very typical parts that you're going to replace in a service or repair situation. The next thing is going to be stuff like drags or drag washers. Most of the time, we're going to do like we're going to do with yours here. We're going to put the carbon fiber in this instead of the old material that just doesn't seem to grab as much anymore. So this is going to help
Hmm.
your drags. Um, we'll also go into bearings and things like that. But this in particular reel, these old vintage reels, these are what we call a fat shaft. And these shafts here, um, they just won't accept a bearing. And what your typical bearing size for these old vintage reels is like a 3x10x4. And if you like this right here, you can see it's over 3 millimeters. So a
Hmm.
3x10x4 will not fit on these old vintage model reels, especially these red ones. Now, if you get into something like this black one here, this is going to be a 6000C. This indicates that it does have a bearing, and this shaft is a little bit different, so it will accept a bearing. You see, so on your
Gotcha.
reel, yours is older, so yours is still in the 60s. There's just not going to accept a bearing, and there's some bearings out there that you can find in Europe. We dug them down, but if you're going to pay $40 something for a set of bearings and jump on it, but most people are going to say, we're good with that.
Yeah.
So kind of just to start off, since we're on the spool, what we do is you got bronze bushings in these spools. This is the original bronze bushings out of your reel. What we do is we resurface everything. I'll give you a little trick on these bronze bushings. If you're servicing these yourself, and these are not known to be real speedy reels, but they last forever because of the bushings. You can put a lot of weight on them. You can throw them, and you're not going to wear out that bearing. Like the bushings tend to last longer. But what we like to do, and anybody could do it, we just take like some 2000 grit sandpaper, roll it up real tight, get your bushing, and then you want to just go ahead and just resurface the inside of that bushing. And you'll sit here, spin it, it'll squeak. Once it squeaks, you're pretty slick in there. But that kind of resurfaces that. You're going to take you a little bit of the 2000 grit. Again, you're going to take your 2000 grit sandpaper and hit this side of your spool shaft. Hit this side of your spool shaft where these both ride, because that's what happens is this spool rides on each end like this. That's how these old reels do. They're fixed shaft. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that these areas are very slick. So when you put the oil to them, that's going to speed up your spool. That's going to make casting a little bit easier for you, even though you can't get a bearing in this model. So, and like I said, while we're talking about that a little bit, your newer model reels they are floating. So this is a newer spool. I don't like your standard C3 or Catfish Special or whatever. It rides on a shaft like this. It's not a fixed shaft. So it kind of just floats, and everything is truly, truly free like that. But we're working on something from the 1960s, so they didn't have this technology then. So for the guys at home, and a lot of people still like using these old vintage reels, and they're built very, very solid and very well. So what we like to do is, even if we tune these, we're going to polish these ends, and we're going to put a little slicker oil, and we're going to make sure this thing speeds up. All right, so with that being said, all right, so everything was clean. I've already prepped this a little bit just to save a little time, but this is your clutch plate. A lot of people are real nervous about getting in on this clutch plate side. The left side, the palming side, is not as intimidating, because all you got is a cog wheel and your clicker mechanism, and that's all you got in the left side of your reel, the palming side.
Right.
So that's pretty simple. You can take this left plate off. You can get to your spool. You can pull your spool in or out, whatever. But once you get into the gear side, this is where a lot of people get intimidated. And it's really not that bad. It's pretty simple. You can always get online and find you a schematic, and that'll help you, understand what parts are what. But, you kind of need to understand the mechanics of the reel first and foremost to understand what's going on in here. So, like on your clutch plate on these older models, they're going to be basically set up just like this, just in about every one of these vintage models are going to look like this right here. All this is stationary. It's kind of pinned in. So what you're going to do simply is you're going to take these springs off. You're going to take a toothbrush, and you're going to clean all this with some Dawn dishwashing soap, hot water. That's what I would recommend using. I wouldn't get into your simple greens and stuff like we do with our ultrasonic cleaners, because on these old model reels, this anodized finish will easily corrode or strip that finish with any kind of hard cleaners. So be ultra careful with these vintage reels, and just use Dawn dishwashing soap, a toothbrush, and some warm water. You could even let it soak in there to kind of bust up the old grease and stuff, and you will get that real clean. You just got to put a little elbow grease in. So like I said, here you go. This one we've already kind of greased this, and if you'll notice, I haven't greased this really heavy. That's probably a number one thing that new guys trying to service their own reel themselves, they're going to slop the grease in real heavy. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Next time you go to service it, you got to clean all that out. And the more grease you got, the more it's going to gum up, and the more it's going to slow the reel down and impede the performance. So like I said, as you can see, I'm just lightly greased in the areas that I think is necessary with all the moving parts. So it's just lightly greased and it's ready to go. Just about all these little ambassadors, you're going to have these little shims that go up under the drive shaft. Just a little bitty shim, you can see. All right.
Wow.
Probably a piece that gets away from everybody. So just be aware of that. On all these ambassadors, even up to the 7000s, you're going to have this little shim that goes under that drive shaft. Very important to just be aware of that, okay? but that always goes like that. So, all right. From that point, you've got your clutch plate greased. Just greasing the areas that it's moving. That's all that's necessary. You don't have to slobber it all over the whole entire clutch plate. Just grease the moving parts, and that's all you need to do. From that point, we'll just go ahead and build what you call your drag stack. To understand the drags, what you have is you've got a combination of things that go in series up the drive shaft. All of it gets sandwiched together, and your star drag is going to screw down on top of all this stuff, in this series. You'll see in just a moment. That's what applies the pressure. So as you're turning tight on your star drag, you're pushing down on a series of clutch plates, basically. The carbon fiber creates a better surface to grab, gives you a smoother surface. It just helps you all the way around to go to the carbon.
What
But like I
grease do
said,
you recommend?
what we use with the carbon is the CALs, the universal reel and drag grease. This
Okay.
stuff is excellent. We use this on the main gears, we use them on the pinions, and we use them on the drags. That way we get no grease creep from a different type of grease into our carbon fiber, because carbon fiber really only likes the Teflon based grease, not like the lithium based.
Interesting.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll build this drag stack, and I'll show you how to do it. It doesn't require a lot of grease. You can run these dry. They say you can. We don't run them dry in our shop. We always grease these. They feel better. It helps the smoothness of the drag. So as you're pulling line out, you never want it to lock up. That's kind of counterproductive. You don't want it to lock up. You're going to break something. So the whole point of a drag is to put pressure but not lock up. It needs to slip. This reel was probably rated at about maybe eight pounds of drags with these old drags in it.
Really?
So you're gonna get a few more pounds. I mean, you got to think that's all drag you've got in these kind of reels, and you move
Well,
up to a
Corey, I
seven.
mean, I haven't been catching very many big fish, so I don't know if I need any more or not.
I hear you, but hey, you got to be ready, right?
Yeah, I got to be ready. That's right.
So, like as you could see, you move to a 7,000, and you could see the difference in the drags. You see.
Wow.
So these old vintage models, they just wasn't made for a lot of drag pressure, but you could still tighten down on one and catch a good fish on these reels, no doubt. All right, so we'll go ahead and throw the drag stack. What I usually do is I just take a little grease on my finger. That's all you need to do, and you just need to kind of rub it in on the carbon fiber. Your carbon fiber is real dry, and it's going to kind of suck up that grease. So kind of make sure you get it rubbed in there, because you'll look back at it and it'll be dry, because it'll suck that up. So just got to take your finger, and what I do, and the way I rub these in, sometimes you'll feel a little bit of a carbon fiber chunk come off or something, just like a little spur or burr, and you can just take it and wipe it off. Just get rid of it. So that always allows me to feel that drag washer, make sure there's nothing in the way that's going to make this feel nice and smooth. So.
And I see you got a little Q-tip and a little bit of grease in another little container, so you don't have to have
Yeah,
that big
so
container.
right, we use different oils. We use about 3 different oils, and we use about 3 different style greases. So it just depends on what application we're using. You'll see I've used the green grease, which is just standard marine grease, in all the internals here on the clutch plate. But when it comes time for the drags, the main gear, and the pinion gear, I'm going to use the CALs. It's a little bit stouter grease. It's going to hang in there. It's got a higher temperature rating. It's not going to creep as bad. It just stays in place, and it works a lot better for us. So like I said, we'll go ahead and knock this little drag washer out. This goes on the bottom. And you'll see as we get through with this drag stack on how a drag actually works, and it'll let you better understand the mechanics of the reel as far as why drag this, why drag that, and why it's not good to just lock your reels down. I know there's certain applications where maybe somebody's flathead fishing, they're in a lot of heavy structure, they run braid, they'll suspend the bait maybe outside of the log jam, and what they don't want is that fish to run back in. So if he comes out and he hits, they want to hold him there. And I understand that technique, but basically for the most part, if you don't have to lock your drag up, do not do it. Allow a little bit of slip. So we got so like I said, you got your drive shaft here. Your bottom washer goes on there. They got a different size hole in them, so you're not going to, accidentally put one washer in the wrong spot or something. It's kind of self-explanatory. All right, I always kind of pre-lube the surface before I made it. And this one's very simple. You had your bottom drag washer here. You had your top drag washer there. You got a clicker spring, which I wish they wouldn't have got rid of in the new model stuff. I love that little clicker in there. But what we do also is like this surface here that's going to be riding on that drag washer. We like to just take some 400. 400 seems to do the best for us, the 400 grit, and just take your surface of your drag. You kind of just put it on a board or something and just kind of work that down. All you're doing is resurfacing it. That's all you're doing to get that nice 400 grit finish. I notice it works very well with the carbon fiber. So
that's so interesting.
It really does. It works all the way around for every reel. If you want to increase the drags, use the carbon fiber drags. We get ours through Smooth Drag, smoothdrag.com. We're dealers for them as well. Their products are extremely consistent. We've been using them for probably 4 years now, and we've never had an odd washer. They're always perfect when we get them in their packs. They're just a great company. So we stick by Smooth Drag. But like I said, just kind of pre-lube everything. And see, this is a very, very simple drag stack. Now you see what this goes in here, your top drag washer. It'll fit right up against that. You can probably hear that clicking now. So that's how your clicker works in there. But
yep, I hear.
You'll always take your cup washer. There'll always be a cup washer that goes up. Then you'll have a flat washer. This is pretty typical to all these old reels. Cup washer goes on first. Everybody will get confused sometimes if you don't have a schematic. And you'll be like, well, where does that cup washer go? Most of the time, that sucker will go up. It'll kind of bowl up like this. And that'll be right on time. So always put that on first. And then you'll have a flat washer, and then you'll have a bushing. And the reason B is these old reels, that was way before instant anti-reverse bearings come along. So you still got to use the old dogs, and that's where you get that little handle slop. You'll have a little bit of backwards play in that before it actually stops it for the anti-reverse. So all your modern reels from 90 up, kind of, you're going to have an option for an anti-reverse bearing, and then you can do away with all this stuff. But for this, that's what you got for anti-reverse. So that's your complete drag stack. All right, shows the bushing, which rides inside of your plate right there, and that's what keeps everything tight. As you can see that bushing. All right. It keeps it tight, keeps your shaft from flopping back and forth when you're reeling. That keeps everything centered. All right, so the whole idea of this, like I was saying, explaining the mechanics of the drag, as this sets in on your clutch plate on that shaft, it sets right down in there like this. All right, this is going to screw down and actually going to touch this bushing. And the more you turn, the more pressure you're putting down on this stack. And you can see the stack push down and create pressure. So that's the way your drag works. And it's always going to be able to slip, So you put more pressure, it'll just get tighter, and that's how your drag works. So that's pretty simple star drag explanation.
Cool. I mean, some people might have ever understood how that works. I have a question from David Smith. He says, if someone has an Abu that's not made in Sweden, can you replace the cheaper parts with better quality parts like the ones made in Sweden?
Not necessarily. Okay. He's probably speaking of like the BCX models, the S models. They were all made in, overseas, of course. They're totally differently built. So the inside of them is going to have a plastic clutch plate. It's going to have this, and it's totally set up different. The worm gears are not interchangeable. The main gears are not interchangeable. The drag systems are similar, but they're not the same. So you can upgrade the drags. We've done it before, but you got to match them up. I think Smooth Drag might make an S model that you can replace the S model to carbon fiber. And if you want to search the bearings, so many of them models will have different odd size bearings. And it's not going to be your typical stuff like these Abus are going to take pretty much 2 or 3 different style bearings all the way through the years from 70 all the way to now. They'll continue at the same size bearing, the 3x10x4 or the 4x10x4. So, but when you get into the China models, you have just odd size bearings. like Spool High Speed, where we get most of our bearings from. I think actually all our bearings. We've been using them for years, but where they don't produce that odd bearing size. So what you want is you want to try to stick with the Sweden stuff if you can. The China reels, use them, abuse them. You might change the worm gear in them. If you get 2 or 3 seasons out of them, good deal. You know what I mean? And then just buy you another one or something. You know.
Good point.
Yeah, because
Cool.
Sweden reels can be rebuilt, and a Swedish Ambassador is kind of like a Chevrolet 350 or something. It's they've got tons of aftermarket parts. Parts are available all over the internet, from eBay, just everywhere. You know, so you can find parts to these old Ambassadors all the way up to your modern Ambassadors, and you can just continue to rebuild them. They're going to last a lifetime. As long as you're doing this general maintenance like we're talking about tonight. And I'll get to another aspect here in a minute, like your worm gear. Pay very close attention to those things, and you'll keep them for a lifetime. You'll probably pass them down to your son one day or something,
Right.
So, all right.
Cool. Thanks for
So now
answering
that
that
we got
question.
that, yeah, no problem. So like I said, we've got our drag. This is the way I do it. I've seen people do a lot of different ways. I just take a Q-tip. I'll roll it in my cow's grease, and I tend to just roll it around that gear like this. It works great, keeps it off my fingers. And when you have to do a bunch of reels, a day, your hands get caked with this grease and stuff. So as much as you can kind of just roll it around, you don't have to just load that up, because a lot of it's going to spin off and it's going to end up in your clutch plate. So you're just wanting to wet it down and make sure that it has a nice, just small layer of grease on that main gear, and your pinion gear will catch it when you put it all together. So I just do that right there. Take your little anti-reverse dog that we was talking about a while ago. Your little anti-reverse dog. I just kind of dip it a little bit in my grease. Not much, just barely get a little grease on that, just so it'll slide around. And that goes in there like that. And that's what creates your anti-reverse. You see, you'll spin like this, and then it'll catch, and that's what stops you from going backwards. So, and you just keep that on there like that. What I do is I'll take my heaviest grease. As you can tell, oil, I'm sorry, but I'll take my heaviest oil. You see, that's very heavy oil. That's kind of a gun-based oil. This is Lucas stuff is what I use. It's real heavy. And then you go to like your bearing oil, and you'll notice it is extremely thin. You see, that's TSI 321. This is what we put in all our ceramics and stuff. And you can just tell the viscosities are a lot different. This one's like cough syrup, you see. So I take my thick oil. I always use the thicker oil. And like, I understand guys are not going to have all this. I do understand that. But you could take just basic 3-in-1 oil or Lucas reel oil. You can find that usually. And you can do the whole reel in that if you want to.
Right.
Because we're technical a little bit, because we tune a lot. So we like to use different stuff. But you can use one oil and one grease and be fine,
And it's kind of like probably one of those things. If you don't do as many reels as you guys do, you get it, and you get it by once, and you got it.
Right.
You go through a bunch of it like you guys do.
Yeah, you don't have to have what we got. It just helps us, like I said, more for tuning, because that's kind of what we're known for, is the tuning aspect of reels. We're going to speed them up. We're going to make the drags better. We're just going to, and each reel is going to be tuned independently. No 2 reels will ever feel the same. No matter if we tune 6 of your reels, they're all not going to be the same exact feeling on all of them. But they will be, the performance will be increased tremendously on our tunes and stuff. But like I said, each reel is kind of its own unique situation. But when you get ready, this is where your dog goes. There's always going to be a little stud or something right there to hold that anti-reverse dog. You just want to make sure you get it lined up and get it over the top of that stud like that. And then your anti-reverse dog is in place. I hope you can see that.
Yep.
All right. And what I do is I'll just take a little dot of oil there just to kind of keep that moving. So there you go. Right there is your clutch plate, completely serviced. It's nice and clean, just enough grease. It's not overdone. It's going to be enough to keep this thing serviced for a while. This cow's grease is going to help smooth them gears up. You're going to feel a difference in that nice heavy grease there. So That's your clutch plate. It's not as difficult as a lot of people might think, especially these vintage ones. These are real good reels to get started with. They're not as many parts. As you get up into new stuff, you get into a Shimano Dakota or something like that, and my God, the parts you're going to see, you know. So this is a great starter reels, is these vintage ambassadors. They'll really help you get to understand what you're doing in these reels. So once you got your clutch plate assembled like that, you know, you want to go on and you want to go to the crankside plate. Now this is where we're going to get into our bushings. Your bushings has got a little key.
Is too much grease bad?
Too much is bad, yes. And I hate to talk about Penn, but Penn's the world's worst at throwing the grease to these reels. When we get them, we open them up. They use the blue grease. We don't like the blue grease. We try to get rid of it. But they like to absolutely slop the grease in the whole plate. Looks like they just took their hand and just, you know, put it in there. But we don't do that. We precision grease, I guess you could say. We put grease where it needs to be, and that's the only place it goes.
So,
like I said, these
look like the third wheel on a tractor, huh?
Yeah, it does, man. And it's a real pain to get it off there. I mean, anybody that's done reels or worked on the pins before know exactly what I'm talking about. That grease is tacky and it stains and it gets everywhere, you know. So we just don't like the blue pin grease. Nothing against it. It does what it's supposed to. It stays in place and it keeps the reel quiet, because that's the main objective with all the grease, is just keep everything quiet. And say a saltwater situation, you want the grease to coat everything and the salt water go away, you know. So, but we're mostly working with freshwater reels. All right, so you set your bushing in there just like that, and it'll set kind of flush and nice and pretty. I've already got our caps done. They've got the shims inside of them, and they got a felt oil washer there. That's just to be loaded with oil, and that keeps the end of your spool shaft nice and wet, you know, and keeps that area lubed.
If someone's got a old 209, someone said they have an old 209 pin, and they found it stuck in the spool don't spin, is it worth fixing?
Yeah, they're worth fixing, yes. I just wouldn't put a ton of time into the real old pins. We've got a big old box full of those things. They're classic tanks, but they're real slow retrieve. Their drag pressure is not what you think they are to be a reel this big around. The drag pressure probably has just about as much as this ambassador here, you know. So they're cool. They're cool reels. But if you're going to dump money, like say you send it to Pipeline, and we're only going to do a service on it, yeah, that might be okay, you know, to spend, you know, 30, 40 bucks on it or something. But if you're going to try to spend more than, you know, $50, $60 on it, you can go buy another one or pick up two or three or whatever, you know. So you kind of typically want to watch what you do with the reel. And if it's more than the reel costs brand new, you might say, well, you know, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth doing that. Now, the only thing that would go the other way with that is kind of like a super tune or something. That's going to cost, you know, you're going to spend over $100 bill to super tune one of these things. But that's just got to be what you want. You've got to want that performance. You've got to need that performance. A lot of guys that fish the tournament scene, they fish out of the boat, they do a lot of dragging, or they're bumping, or they're doing any of those kind of methods. They don't need to sling that bait out 100, 200 foot behind the boat. So that super tune feature is really not what they're looking for. So most of the time, we're just going to service their reels and we're going to beat their drags up, and that's perfect for them, you know. So typically, it's just depends on what you need, what you're after, and is it worth it for you.
Gotcha.
So all right, so buttoning this up, and like I said, I just put that on there. You can see the bushing in place. What I like to do is just take a little bit of grease, kind of grease inside here where that bushing is going to let to kind of spin around in there. You're just kind of free lubing that. Set it right down on there. It's going to kind of click in place there, and you're set. You got 2 screws called your crown screws. They go right here, and that locks your plate in, and then your plate's isolated, done, and ready to move on to the next project. So that's very easy. It's probably one of the most intimidating parts on the reel, but it's really not as difficult as you would have probably thought, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, your explanation makes it sound very doable.
It is. It is. We try not to turn anybody away from servicing yourself because we sometimes understand that our services are not the cheapest on the internet. You could probably find somebody to do maybe a little cheaper or whatever, but we like to consider ourselves the highest standard in servicing, so you get what you pay for.
Exactly. Now, as you're putting that back together, do you find yourself servicing reels for other species anglers, like saltwater
Oh yeah,
anglers, bass fishermen, things like that?
yeah, we sure do. Of course, we started catfish specific, just simply because we love the catfishing world. That's just who we are. But as we got to doing reels more and more, we ventured into the bass scene, redfish, stripe, all different kinds of species like that. As long as it's freshwater, and we do some salt every now and then, like some redfish guys in Louisiana. They've been customers for a long time with us, and they send saltwater reels to us, and they typically chase them big bull reds. So we automatically
Hmm.
always do their instant anti-reverse stuff, and we do their drags. And most of the time, we're putting bearings in there because they're casting lures as well.
Right.
So what I do, sometimes these little star drags will give you a fit because they're spinning like this. I usually just take a small wrench. It's about a quarter, 6 millimeter, whatever, somewhere in that range, and it'll kind of fit there, and it'll allow you to just spin it and get past any kind of rough spot, to keep it
Hmm.
from spinning around on you. So that's just a quick little thing that we've learned over the years, just to kind of put a wrench here, and you can do whatever you want with the star drag.
Is
All
that
right.
one of
Well, that
those
being done,
frustrating nights when it just don't work and you just tired of it and you just put a wrench on it?
yeah, just put a wrench on it.
They call that tricks of the
But
trade,
yeah, you'll
right? Like
learn
the
that.
sandpaper thing.
Yeah, yeah, it is, and it's just stuff you kind of get to learn as you go on what you're doing here. But all right, so moving on, we got our clutch plate
All
side,
right.
we got our whole handle side assembly done. It's complete, ready for a handle. We'll just kind of grease this area here when we made it to the frame here shortly, and you'll be done with that. So now we're going to move on to another kind of key element of all this is the worm gear. Your
Hmm.
worm gear is probably one of the most overlooked things that cause failure. It's a great convenience, of course, to have the line laid for you, but also this is a performance inhibitor and it's a major
Mm.
downfall for repair. You know what I mean? So the worm gear is
Hmm.
convenient as it is, and this was a huge thing when it come out for bait canoe, um, but it can be the downfall of the whole reel. So like I said, when probably 80-85% of the reels that come through for repair is going to need this worm gear. It's just the way it is. They're not designed to just last forever. They're not. It's a little bitty paw, sliding back and forth through this. Anything grabs a hold of this, your jacket gets hung in here, your finger gets hung in there, dirt and grime, grit, a rock, anything will cause this
Hmm.
to just kind of hit one of these teeth, break it off, and then it's done. It's over with. So
Right.
this is your number one thing. If you are servicing reels yourself, or you are trying to just maintain it, maybe not even a full service, but you need to maintain it, you need to be looking at this worm gear assembly. What we automatically check as soon as we get a reel, we're going to run these through the ultrasonic cleaner, and we're going to look. Let's see if I can get this where you can see it, where you can see the individual teeth. You want to look at every single one of these. Mostly, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the ones on the end, on either side. These will be busted or
Right.
chipped or something. If you don't see real well, get a magnifying glass or something. Whatever you got to do, but you have to inspect this thoroughly because that's where it'll be. That's where your problems will lie. And of course, your paw. Once it gets real worn, it'll do the same thing. Um, this one is the one of the original style worm gears. So it's probably original, or if it's been replaced, it's been replaced a long time ago. But they're harder than they are today. The worm gears you get today, back then your paw would wear out before your worm gear. Today, your worm gear will wear out before your paw most of the time. So it just shows of the quality of the materials being used in the 60s compared to today.
Hmm.
So, but So what we like to do, always clean everything. Take a little oil, get in behind this plastic bushing right here. It kind of slides back and forth. It kind of slides back and forth. Take your needle
I
dropper,
think
just
your
get it
other
in behind there.
camera froze there.
The big camera froze.
Yeah. No, the small camera, the one on your hands.
Uh-oh. We'll wait and see if it comes back in. It's trying to pop back up, ain't it?
There it goes.
So got you back. It's looking kind of laggy on my side. You see me?
Yeah, it's laggy. Yeah, it's
Okay.
laggy, but we'll
All
deal
right.
with it.
Hey, we're out in the woods back here, man. So we do the best we can with live feed. All right. So what we got, I always use, we get this grease from Spool, High Speed. We get all our bearings from them. This is the company we use, Spool High Speed. They hook us up with all the grease that we need. They hook us up with all our bearings we need. And this grease we have found works very well for worm gears. Keeps it real slick, makes them fast, because when we're tuning and we're going for speed, all these other greases are going to slow us down. And if we're trying to show somebody how fast and how open this reel could be, and we use the wrong grease there, it's going to be slow. So it's going to just kind of take away from all the work we put into that tune.
Right.
So what we found is this stuff works very well for us, and it keeps our tunes fast, but it stays on the worm gear for a while. So we just found that this stuff works really well, and you can get it at Spool High Speed. We've got a ton of it at Pipeline Tackle. If you send the reel in, you want to do something on your own, and you need some greases and stuff, we have it. We got the cows, we've got the marine grease, and we've got the spool stuff. We keep all that in stock. So what we like to do is I like to just get a little lumber tip, and I like to just roll it through my worm gear teeth like this. You don't want it too heavy. If you're piling that stuff up, it's just going to stay trapped in your tube, and it's just going to cause you problems. So what I like to do is just get it in those teeth is all I'm trying to do. I don't want it piled up on the outside of my worm gear. So as you can see, I just loaded inside of that worm gear. That's all I did. All right, and then I'm going to take a drop of oil on the end right there. I'm going to slide it in the tube. Now you can
Is
see we
Chris
have a
by
pump.
you?
Yeah, he's sitting right on the end of the bench over here.
I wonder if he could tilt the main camera down. The interview cam.
Which, this one here?
Yeah.
Can you
Is
tilt
that
this camera down just a little bit? He said.
that table cam is pretty bad right now.
Oh, to try to get, yeah, this one right here. He's saying it's kind of. I think we're losing it here and there, right, Kevin? Our table cam's just kind of going in and out on us or something.
Yeah, I mean, so everybody in chat, we'll just go ahead with it. I don't want to change too much up, Corey. We're almost to the end, and y'all in chat, just bear with us, and he's talking you through it. So that information is still really good to hear it.
Okay, we'll just try. We'll do our best. We get in these predicaments with the tournament live feeds and stuff. It's just the way it's the nature of the beast, I guess. But we'll try to get through it, Kevin.
Yep.
All right. So
yeah,
basically,
go for it, man.
As you can see, everything. Did it go out again?
No, keep going.
But you can see my worm gear's free. That's what you want to make sure of. It's a free worm gear. Everything's moving properly. You've got your line guide next. You're going to slide it through your frame. I hope I'm on the big screen, right? So basically, you want to start it. You got to put this in, and you got to push it to one side. This gets a little tricky because you got to get that in the groove. Your little line guide's got to sit in that groove. This has got to be lined up on the other side, and then it'll snap right in. And then everything should work just properly.
Gotcha.
I hope you got to see that. All right.
Yeah,
put the clip on.
It's
and that simply just keeps your. What is it?
Both cameras are. Yeah. It's all right, man. Power through it. We got you.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do it. All right. Simply oil your paw just a little bit. Drop your paw in. It's going to be kind of directional. Those teeth have got to set in the groove. So you want to kind of hold your paw, kind of spin your gear just a little, and it'll fall right in. Once it seats, you'll know it, and then it'll start to move. That's all you got to be aware of. Don't force it. Just let it fall in place, and it'll be just fine. But you'll feel it when it falls in place.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, you got your paw cap. This keeps your paw down tight.
Now, is it recommended that you replace the worm gear when you replace the paw?
Not necessarily. You could replace just the paw sometimes. Sometimes that's not going to cut it. So each individual situation is going to require you to check that out. If you're unsure, replace them both and you're good to go. But most of the time you can replace just the paw. Sometimes the paw's still good and the worm gear failed. You just got to make that judgment yourself. Once you do it, once you get it to this point, like I did, and it's not going back and forth, it should be very easy. I mean, I'm just flicking that thing and it's moving. If it sticks or if it has a little rough spot in it, you probably need a worm gear.
Gotcha.
All right. So I think we got both of our cameras now. I'm not sure. What do you see, Kevin?
Yeah,
you see both cameras?
We got them both.
All right. So just apply a little bit of grease right in this area. All you're wanting is just a light protection coat right there. That's all. And you're going to go ahead and you're going to make this up to the right side of the frame. Gotcha. All right. So these don't have a screw slot, like a screwdriver slot in them. They're just old school finger tight kind of deal. You want to put them on there and you want to kind of put a little tension on them, but you don't really want to grab them with pliers if you don't have to. You've got that side mated. You got your worm gear. So now we're moving on to our last thing, which is just the inserting the spool, locking the left side plate out, your palming side plate, and you're going to be serviced, Kevin.
Nice.
Right, so what we do,
Now,
your spool cog gear here, this is your clicker gear. This big plastic gear is what simply gives your audible clicking for your bait alert. The smaller aluminum gear is what you want to put some grease on. I simply take a little paintbrush and I just, like I said, specifically grease certain areas. I'm not trying to slobber. I don't want it on my clicker gear because that's going to kind of mute the click. It's going to soften or dampen the click. So if you want it loud and crisp, you need to keep that very dry. So if you'll notice, I'm not hitting that plastic gear. I want that to be real loud and crisp. The other side, I'm going to take my heavy oil and I'm just going to touch my spool shaft with it. And I'm just going to kind of make sure that that's pre-lubed. And then I'm going to slide it in. I don't know which camera we got.
interview camera.
But you're going to slide it in. Your pinion, okay, your pinion has a slot in it. So this spool shaft is going to set in that slot, and it's going to be kind of directional. When it goes in, you'll know it. It'll fall in place. If not, it's not going to go in properly. See, so it's got to fall in and click in, and then you'll see exactly where it's supposed to be. Once you got your spool in, we're going on to our. Do we drop our other camera? We're just going to take that camera off, Kevin. We're just going to keep.
That's fine. We'll continue with this one.
Okay, because we're almost done, man. All right, so we tried to kind of make this a program, do as best we can, because we could have done this in 15 minutes, We're just trying to explain stuff.
It's great, man. Even with the lagging and stuff, I'm learning just by listening, and then we still see what you're doing.
Well, good. All right. So you've got your compost right here. I always want to put some oil here. Now, you've heard reels when you cast and they just squeal real bad. Well, a lot of people think that's a bearing, but 90% of the time, I say 90% of the time, but a lot of the time it's going to be this cog right here. Once this thing dries out, it will squeal on you and you'll think you've got a bearing going out. But most of the time, you can simply open this left plate up. You can take you a drop of this oil and go in under that cog, take the cog off, put some oil under it, put some oil on top of it, put it back together, your squilling's gone. So that's a big thing. If you got a swilling reel, take your left side plate off, check that cog, see if you can get some oil in that. That's probably going to take care of your problem.
That's interesting.
And these are now cogs. These older cogs here from like to the 80s, they went and they put a clip in on them, which I really like the clips. We actually install clips on all the newer models just for ease of servicing later. Because what they do on the modern stuff is they just kind of snap one in. It goes on, it kind of clips in. They're hard to get off. You got to cut them off. Hard to get oil in beside them. What we do is we cut the lip off. We put a clip on it. So every time we service that reel, we just pop the clip off, pull the cog back out. We can service it. So and we might get into that stuff, later on down the road or whatever.
Fair enough.
But you want to make sure you go ahead, just get a light amount of grease on your cog gear. Just kind of a light amount of grease on just the cog here. Now, one side's going to ride. You're timing your spool to your worm gear is what you're doing with this series of the series of cogs. That way, when your spool moves, your level wind is moving at the same exact speed, the same exact timing. So everything's timed perfectly, and it's going to run back and forth at the right. No matter how fast your spool's turning, your level wind's going to turn that fast as well.
Right.
So that's just kind of a timing system. A lot of people go, well, why do they put plastic gears in those? That is a fail-safe type operation. So this plastic gear is it's designed to break, to fail. If anything gets hung up, like I said, if your finger gets in here, it's gonna mash it, but it should, strip this cog, allowing it not to go any further. So it's gonna fail right there, saving your worm gear, saving your spool, saving more expensive parts. A $3 cog,
Right.
hey, that's worth it. Right. So we got one more bushing. Just do the same exact thing. Put the bushing in. It's got a key in it. It'll fall right in place. And then these older models have a clip. Some of the newer models have just a little spring steel. These got an old clip. You want to put it, there's a groove in. It'll snap right in place. And that just keeps your bushing from moving up and down while your spool shaft is moving. So keeps everything tight and in place. So you put that little retainer clip, that's what it is. All right, once you got that on, I'm ready with my cap. I've got my felt washer in. I'm kind of pre-oiled. Put your tension cap. Now, I'll say this while I'm on it, while we're here. Your tension caps on your old vintage stuff, anything that's got two tension knobs like this should be adjusted only from the left side. And I'll tell you the exception. But on 7000s, vintage reels, this handle side tension knob is not to be adjusted. It seats tight. You screw it all the way down, leave it seated. If this is ever loose, you need to seat it. All the adjustments should be done from the left side. This is going to create your spool tension. So when you want it tighter,
Nice.
you simply turn it. When you want it looser, it's just that simple. So you only adjust from the left side. The only time that you'll run into a situation where both of them are adjustable is on your new CS rockets and things like the new 6500 rockets. They are adjustable from the left to the left and right. But the whole purpose is what you do on those rockets is you push your spool completely to the handle side and you adjust that depth and you make sure that that's centered from this side. Once your spool is centered, you leave that alone and you only adjust from the left after you get it centered. So that's the only thing you're going to run into is the Pro Rockets, the newer Pro Rockets. You'll want to center your spool first with this right hand knob. Get your spool centered where it sits right on the frame properly, and then you leave it alone and you adjust from the left. Everything else, besides a new Pro Rocket on Ambassadors, you're going to seat the handle side completely down tight and adjust from the left.
That's interesting. I learned something
All
new.
right. So that's the deal. Now we've got our clicker in here. It's already been pre-installed. Got our cog in. It's greased and oiled. Everything's ready to go. So you want to just make sure you slide this in properly. The newer model Ambassadors are a little trickier to line up. And you don't want to force anything because the cogs are not timed just as soon as you put them together. So you have to kind of spin it and get it to click in place. So you don't want to force that thing together. If it don't fall together, it ain't right. You need to kind of put a little tension on it, spin your spool, allow them gears to catch the teeth, and it'll fall right in place. So never force any of this stuff. If it don't fall in place easily, something ain't right.
Gotcha.
We'll go ahead and put the 3 screws. And while I'm talking about 3 screws on this left plate, that's what lets us know that this reel, besides the foot, this what lets us know it's probably a late 60s model, is it has 3 screws, just like you see on any average normal Abu at this day. Anything 50s and early 60s will have actually 4 screws. So this little stud right here will actually be a screw in the early model ambassador stuff.
Interesting.
That's actually very desirable as well. Like as far as a collector's item, the 4 screw red 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, whatever, you know, they are going to be your desirable. Actually, it's 5,000, 6,000. But
so if y'all find any of those 4 screw reels,
item.
you better hang on to them and get you an eBay account.
Oh, just go to eBay and look. I mean, they're going up every day. You know what I mean? So now, once we button it together, loosen your spool. You'll feel a little bit. I always loosen it up till I feel a little bit of play, and then you can just check everything. And it looks like it's smooth. It's not making any noise. It's moving back and forth very easily. And then it clicks right back over in place. So everything feels great here. The only thing we'll do is we'll check our drags when we get the handle on it. But as far as that spool, it's nice and quiet and it's moving. Once you get some weight of the line on there, you'll be able to do that and it'll run back and forth a lot more for you. But right now it's just a bare spool, so it's just supporting the weight of itself. But you get a little line weight on there and it will really start moving. But that feels really good, Kevin. I think you'll be able to cast this.
It looks really smooth.
Good for it. All right, what I didn't do is I didn't put the brake blocks back in here. We typically don't do that. I can if you want them on there because of it being like nostalgic and being kind of sentimental to you. I can put these back on there. Typically, we don't put the brake blocks back in. We feel they squeal sometimes, and simply it frees the reel up quite a bit just to leave them out. So we don't hardly ever put them back in there unless the customer wants a reel as original as possible. We'll put them back in there. Most of the time, we just think brake blocks are overrated, honestly, so we just take them out.
Nah, I'm gonna fish with it.
If you're gonna fish with it, I'd just leave them out of there. I don't think it's gonna hurt you, especially catfishing. Now, in certain situations where you're throwing lighter lures, it might be beneficial to leave some brake involved. But catfishing, mostly you're just throwing lead and a piece of bait. So I like it open as much as possible to allow it, just to go on and nothing restricting it. So you always got a little spring washer that goes in here. This is a lot of times when people work on them themselves and they send them to us. They forgot these little spring washers. They always go down. They'll be cut down like that. That keeps your star drag from backing in and sticking against your handle. So if you back out on your star drag, it will bind against the handle. This kind of keeps it from doing that. That's really all its purpose is.
Okay.
Put that on there. This has a little screw.
Because I just installed a power handle on an Abu, and I was wondering about that spring washer. I think I did it right, so that's good.
That's right. Yeah, just always put it kind of cupped down where it'll hold. What you're trying to do is you're trying to keep that star drag away from that handle when you back off.
Right.
That's all that is. All right, so we'll go ahead and put this on. Put the tension nut. This had a screw. These older ones will have a screw here. Newer models, most everybody knows they got an E-clip there. And that's the one that you'll try to take off and it'll fly across the room. You're where my E-clip goes. So it's called, the part number is 4490. If you get on eBay, look up 4490. There's your E-clip.
I'm laughing because that one had an E-clip and I spent about 20 minutes on my hands and knees in the garage trying to find that thing.
Yeah, we did. When we first started, no telling how many hours looking for E-clips and springs. And then we finally got smart and be like, we just need to buy a bunch of these E-clips, But honestly, just another part of the COVID issue, something as simple as those 4490 E-clips went on back order. So we've had several guys calling us going, man, we need E-clips. And we're going, well, we need E-clips too. So that's just something that we're dealing with, So some of these basic parts have went on back order and you just got to be careful, but you can still get on eBay or something like that and find a distributor or a parts guy that still has them or whatever. So, all right. So that made a click. You can hold your spool, test your drags. It's very smooth. You see how smooth that is. Going into the range, it's starting to get tighter, but it's smooth. There's no jerkiness. It's not doing none of that. Your original drags, you would get this, And
Mm,
that's what the carbon and everything does, is it gets rid of that jerkiness, allows for a nice,
yeah.
just smooth pull out. So there's your reel, man, and it is nice. It feels very smooth. It's quieter than when it come in here. Feels great. You're probably going to cast it a lot further, and I know your drags are going to hold up quite a bit better. So that's your basic rundown, like kind of 101 on
Hmm.
just servicing one of these basic vintage ambassador reels.
Awesome. Well, thank you, 205 Wild Action, for the $5 super chat.
Cool.
I really do thank Corey and Chris for giving us their time tonight. Before you go, you guys have been really busy because not only do you have your tournament series, you've also taken on another endeavor. So why don't you just give everybody a little rundown of that? Maybe they can join you one of these weekends.
Sure. So basically, long story short, we kind of got into the tournament scene. We started a local trail. We took over an old trail that's here on Wheeler Lake. We used to kind of sponsor it. It's called the Hold'em Hook Trail. We loved going to that trail. We sponsored it. We helped him move fish for a long time. Due to certain things, he wanted to lay it down. He'd been doing it a long time. So we kind of got his
Hmm.
blessing to use his dates. We started a local trail. We've been doing it for about 2 years now. We get like on the average about 30 boats locally on Wheeler Lake. Had pretty good success with it. That kind of pushed us into doing a larger tournament. We wanted to hit a 100-boat tournament, and we did that successfully on Wheeler Lake in winter, January, like the 1st of January. We done one last year, had our 100 boats. We capped it out in like 7.5 hours. It was unreal.
Wow.
So 100 entries paid 7.5 hours, and we were rock and roll. We knew what we were doing.
Wow. That's
Due to
impressive.
kind of popular demand, everybody wanted more boats. They didn't want it capped. So this year we went ahead and we moved to Decatur at Ingalls Harbor there because the facilities is really nice. Super nice captain's meeting facility, super nice boat ramp. We moved it there, and we're going to cap at 150 this year. So we're going to add 50 more boats to it this year, and we'll see where it goes from there. But that's our big Bama Blues stuff. You can go to thebamablues.com and you can check out our big tournament. You can see all the information there. We just dropped the registration date. You should find it on Facebook. It's the Bama Blues page. We got a Bama Blues tournament series and a Bama Blues page. The Bama Blues page is the big event, and the tournament series we only have about two more tournaments left for our local tournament series, and we'll be done with that. And the reason that we're going to be done with that, and I know it hurts some people's feelings. We get calls all the time. We had some really loyal anglers that fished our tournament trail. But the reason why we are laying down our local trail next year is we took a job with the Cabela's King Cat tournament trail. So my brother and I will be following Cabela's to all the places that it normally stops, and we've got some new places, and we're going to be directing the King Cat tournament trail.
Nice.
So look for us there. If you loved our local trail, follow us with Cabela's because we've got a lot of things in the works for Cabela's. We've got a lot of new things coming about Cabela's, with from the schedule to the points to the rules. Just the whole thing is kind of revamped. We're going to have a lot of information on this soon. You'll be able to catch it on the Cabela's King Cat page, but we'll be coming out with all the details for the 2022 season. But if you want to follow us, if you like the way we direct tournaments, follow us on the Cabela's King Cat tournament trail next year, and also our big tournament coming up in January, which is 150 boats in Decatur. And you can find us there on thebamablues.com.
Nice. And that link, it's not really the link, but the name of that website is in the chat. I just put it in there. Um, check these guys out, y'all. If you like to fish tournaments or you wanted to check out a tournament, definitely check them out. So one question that I didn't ask is the basic service that you did to my reel. What does that cost a person when they send it in? Just exactly what you did.
Okay, for our basic service is about $25, and that usually covers everything from a little reel to a larger 7,000 or something like that. So $25
Cool.
is kind of our starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you got some drags thrown in there. You got a little polishing done in there. A couple little extra
Mm-hmm.
things. That'll be a little extra fee, of course, for the
Right.
drags and the bearings and the tunes. But normally we do a tune on an ambassador, like say 6,500. somewhere around the $60 mark. And that's going to get you the carbon fiber drag upgrade, the ceramic bearings, and it also does the polishing. We talk about polishing. We don't show that a lot because that's kind of a trade thing. But we polish certain points. We reduce friction in certain areas, and that's what keeps our tunes running so fast. We kind of felt like we've had one of the fastest tunes around the industry as far as just how long a reel can sustain in free spin mode. We felt like we pretty much set that standard. And so our tunes might be a few dollars more than somebody else's, but I'm telling you, our tunes are top notch. So that's what you go pay. And I went into the super tunes being somewhere around the $100 mark, but that you're getting more bearings, you're getting several more bearings, several more parts, and it's just unbelievable what happens then. So, but yeah, but tunes are most popular. Super tune, we have sold a ton of super tunes, but our standard tune, when somebody comes in, they're going to get us to service it for 25. They're going to add drags for, 10 to 15 bucks. They're going to do this, and this. They're like, man, I've already got 45, 50 bucks in it. I can go ahead and just get the tune option for 60. And a lot of people just go on with it. They just do the tune. That's our most popular. If you want to try a service outside of our services, I would say try a tune.
Awesome. Well, y'all, the link to their website is now in the chat. Click on that, and it'll take you to their website. Y'all, we've been going for about an hour and 12 minutes. I know we have Mr. Avid Fisherman is live now, so I just want to thank you, Corey and Chris, for giving us your time tonight. Very valuable time, as you heard, everybody, and so I really appreciate it. We first met at the virtual CatCon this past year, and I look forward to meeting you in person, at least in Kentucky, if you don't go to Kansas City.
We'll probably try to do some more in-depth stuff, and we might get into a little bit of the tuning stuff.
Thank you for watching. Cool. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're good. I'm just saying we're going to get into some more stuff on this reel repair, so just keep an eye out for us.
Awesome. Yeah. And we got a little bit of lag issues, but y'all, I hope you found value through this. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. Corey, every live stream I pray us out, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Heavenly Father, we thank you for Corey and Chris, Pipeline Tackle. We thank you for the service they provide and the time that they give voluntarily, Lord. And we just ask that you bless them and bless their company and their tournaments. Thank you for everyone in chat. Thank you for the opportunity you've given me to reach people through this YouTube channel. I give you all the glory. It's in your name we pray. Amen. All right, everybody. Well, thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Until then.